Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. All right, Hebrews. It's a whole lot of Hebrews got a whole lot of misinformation going on. You know, it's not your fault because our heritage was blotted out at 100%. No Hebrews retain their heritage coming from the slavery days. You know, that's a known fact that, our history and our heritage was beat out of us. You know, it took a little while, but they accomplished that. But all that was prophecy. But anyway, it's a whole lot of Hebrews got a whole lot of misinformation going on. And the misinformation basically pertain to the history that they be trying to kick. And they ain't kicking the real history. You ain't kicking the real history if you are using any history outside the Tanakh to explain Hebrew Israelite history. You see what I'm saying? And it's easy to understand that. I didn't explain it. You know, a whole lot of you Hebrews history is off because you have no understanding of who the Amorites are. You see what I'm saying? And when you be talking about Babylon and mystery Babylon, the Amorites are the Sephardi Jews who was placed in our land in 722 BC. They come from Sepharvaim, Sepharvaim, Nippur, and Sippar. Those were scribing towns. These towns are responsible for the whole history of Babylon. You couldn't become a king unless you got it from these places back in the days, back in antiquity. You know, and you Hebrews got to understand that the people from Sippar, the scribes of Babylon, who wrote books for thousands of years before we was even a Hebrew nation, they had administration and how to define words, dictionaries, encyclopedias. They had the whole archives of Babylon at their hand because they manned it. They was responsible for it. You see what I'm saying? So when those people from Sippar, the Sepharvaims, when those people from Sippar, from Babylon, was placed in our land in Second Kings chapter 17. All praise be Almighty Yah. Turn to it. In Second Kings chapter 17, verse 24, chapter 17, 2 Kings, chapter 17, verse 24, you'll see, and the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cuddar and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. Okay, those were some Babylonian scribes. They was responsible for Babylon history. You see them people come from here on the Euphrates and they brung them here. But the thing about it, being that they was Babylonians, you see what I'm saying? And from them parts, those parts was founded by Amorites. You see, long time ago, the Amorites had a covenant before we did. You see what I'm saying? The Amorites had a covenant and the Creator saved old Tazareth Amorite. You see what I'm saying? If you read chapter 16 of Ezekiel, he go into the history of the founders of Jerusalem. You see, and one of them, Jerusalem father is an Amorite. Let's go there. You see, and all those people are connected to the Babylonians. And if you ain't got that in your history, then you ain't, speaking no real history. You speaking the traditions. Now they real crafty and they created a lot of history. I'm talking about all the false history that exists that's kind of like documented and they got a false origin. Where they the creators of that? You see what I'm saying? Because after we abandoned our heritage to them during the Babylonian Wars, we all went into Africa and it was like a 1% that was captured and took into Babylon. They obeyed the Creator and they made it back home. They was destroyed. I got videos about how the exiles from Babylon was destroyed on YouTube. You know, there's nowhere in the world that they could have made it and passed their heritage off to the enemies that was tricking them out of their heritage. You know, that's what the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi explain what happened to the exiles, you know, and then they was cut off by the Greeks. You know, we couldn't share no land with the Greeks, and the Greeks didn't come in as friends, you know, not no barbarians from the north. Okay, those Amorites, them Amorites, if you look at Ezekiel 16, and it says, and the word of the Elohim came unto me, saying, Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations, and say, This saith the Elohim Yah unto Jerusalem, Thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother was a Hittite. Okay, that's like you can see that they had followed the Creator at one time, but they lost their ways. Is when you have that Amorite priest Melchizedek. You see Melchizedek, that after our father prophet Abraham saved them when those Mesopotamian folks came and got up with them gay Amorites and beat them down in Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, Melchizedek was the priest of Jerusalem. You know what I'm saying? Salam, you know, Jerusalem, you know, that's where they come from. And he was the priest of it. And our father Abraham, you know, was placed there because he was finna, his descendants, us, was finna displace those Amorites because they had got wicked. But anyway, those Amorites are the founders of Sodom and Gomorrah. See, Melchizedek, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought bread and wine and was the priest of the Most High. You know what I'm saying? And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abraham of the Most High. You know what I'm saying? You see, he blessed Abraham. You see what I'm saying? And tried to give props to our father, you know, Prophet Abraham, because he knew that Prophet Abraham descendants, the Hebrews coming from his land, was finna displace those wicked Amorites who he was the priest over that had lost their ways, you know. And those Amorites are the founders of Babylon. If you go look up Babylonian history, Hammurabi was a Amorite, and he had a law that had like 230 some laws or something like that, you know. But you know, they try to say that, you know, that the Hebrews, you know, that we got our, you know, some of our stuff from them from back in them days, where the Creator had a covenant with a whole bunch of people. So you know, the law that we have, it existed at one time, but those people wasn't able to hold it. You know, the Creator can bless who he want and make a covenant with who he want. We can't say who that is, but he chose us, Abraham's seed, because he knew that we would be faithful to the end. And once we got on track the right way, you see, we never got on track the right way from coming from Exodus, coming out of Egypt up under that idol worshiping nation, going into the promised land to face those wicked Amorites whose abomination was way worse than the Egyptians. The Egyptians' wickedness and sinful ways was nothing on the Amorites in the people of Canaan. Well, okay, if you Hebrews history don't include nothing about those Sepharvims from Sipper, then your history off. Your history off, because those are the Amorites, and they system prevail today. Matter of fact, we up under a system that they created now. America is a Babylonian Egyptian system. That's why Babylon was spoken in the book of Jeremiah in prophetic terms, a mystery Babylon. This is it. You see what I'm saying? Because the people who control Babylon, their descendants control America. You know, when those Sephardi Jews, the Sephardims, was chased out of the promised land in 70 AD and ran across North Africa into Spain, where those Jews from Spain come over to the Americas and founded, you know, this nation. You know, the Sephardi Jews did, the Sephardims, you know, that's their name. You know, I showed you 2 Kings chapter 17 verse verse 24. Chapter 17, verse 24. 2 Kings. All right. So if you Hebrews history ain't talking about these people and talking about this, then your history gonna be off, because those are the people that we abandon our heritage to. You know, those were some Amorite scribes. And when we went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah, you know, we left everything to them. You know, like 134 years. You know, the Babylonians war start. All right, but let's show them having, you know, some contact, you know, without information and heritage. As you read 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24, and you get all the way down, you will see that it said, so they feared the Elohim and made unto themselves the lords of them priests of the high places, which sacrifice for them in the houses of the high places. So they were starting to do some of the stuff that they did in the ancient days, and then mix our heritage with it. You see, because the northern kingdom was on Egyptian religion. You see, they was being tricked when those folks was placed there, and we didn't get rid of them. You see, because we was on Egyptian religion, and we just accept it all like we do now. And that Egyptian religion was on us all the way from Jeroboam time. You see, those same Sephardims are gonna be the people that created the 10 lost tribes myth. But if you go to Second Chronicles chapter 30, Second Chronicles chapter 30, this is written around about 715 BC, 7 years after those Sephardims was placed in our land, those Amorites. Then you'll see under King Hezekiah that everybody was still in the land. And as you read Second Chronicles 30, you will see that everybody's still there, and that he mentioned all the tribes. And then when you get to Second Chronicles chapter 30 verse 25, you will see, and it says, and all the congregation of Judah with the priests and the Levites and all the congregation that come out of Israel, and the strangers that come out of the land of Israel that dwelled in Judah, well, they all came to the Passover dinner at Jerusalem. It's like those Amorites, those Sephardims who was Amorites, was being reunited with Jerusalem again, they old capital, because we took the land from the Amorites, the Jebusites. Those are the same people. Well, they had tricked us. And King Hezekiah, because we were so under distress and the northern kingdom was under attack. You see, the people from Babylon took the fighters. If you go to no, the Assyrians took the fighters. You know what I'm saying? If you go to First Chronicles, verse 5, here it is. First Chronicles, verse 5, verse 26. And the Yah of Israel stirred up the spirit of Paul, king of Assyria, and the spirit of Talicapazer, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, even the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them unto Hala and Habor and Har, unto the river Gazan, unto this day. Well, those are the ones that the Assyrians took, you know, and the Assyrians was destroyed by those same Babylonians. You see what I'm saying? The ones that he placed in our land, well, they had some kinder folks. You know what I'm saying? Them Chaldeans. And them Chaldeans came in and destroyed Assyria. And then when Chaldea came and attacked us in the promised land, that's going to be Ashkenazi coming into the picture. If you go to Second Kings, Second King verse 25, verse 26, you'll see that the Chaldeans, and if you look in history and look at the word Scythians, they made up the Chaldeans army. Well, those Scythians were Ashkenazi. You see what I'm saying? And that's when Ashkenazi come in, and we all went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah. This is like 134 years after those Sephardims was placed in our land. Sephardim is the Hebrew word for Sephardi, Sephardic, and Sephardim. They mix with the Edomites. They all like one people. All the Moabites, the Amorites, all them gonna be like combined, you know, Sephardi Jews. You know what I'm saying? Whose real name in Hebrew is Sephardim. Well, they was kindred to the Chaldeans. And the Chaldeans army was made up of of Scythians, who the Assyrians call Ashkenazi, and who even the Jews themselves identify as Ashkenazi. Well, that's Ashkenazi coming into our land in 588 BC. We're really a little bit before, because they took the prophet Ezekiel and them to Babylon, to that same river, Gazon and Harbor, in that same place, where they had took Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh. All right. And all the people, this is 2 Kings chapter 25, verse 26. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldeans. So that's Ashkenazi coming in to our heritage. And then the book of Jeremiah cover it all. That's when we said that we didn't want to do the covenant no more, and that the covenant was too hard for us. And if you go to Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18, you'll see that it was a mindset, you see. And Jeremiah 44 verse 2, show that we was all in Africa. Either you was in Babylon, that 1%, or you was in Africa, the 99%. That's where we was enslaved from and brought to the Americas. We never reunited with the exiles when they come home from Babylon, when the Persians defeated the Babylonians in 538 BC. See, the Babylonians hailed from Babylon to Egypt. You see what I'm saying? They control Egypt. And when we went into Egypt in the book of Jeremiah, we got on away from Egypt because that's where the Chaldeans was. They come in looking for us, that we was afraid of. You see, that's why come we was enslaved from Africa. And if you ain't showing this and showing this history, then your history is off, and you teaching some Jewish history. You see what I'm saying? The Jews created a history while we was in Africa, you see, because they were scribes, and we didn't have no scribes to record our history when we went into Africa up off covenant land. You see, when we broke the covenant and said we didn't want to do the law no more, then that let all the curses and everything that Prophet Moses spoke about come to pass that we have been living. All right, chapter 44, verse 15, 16. All right, and it says, then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the women stood by a great multitude, even all that dwelt in the land of Egypt, and Pathros answered Jeremiah, saying, as for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do whatsoever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food, and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. That caused our slavery. That caused our whole everything. That was breaking the covenant completely. That covenant that Moses gave us was broken right then, never to be re-got again, because it was over with. And that's why Prophet Jeremiah had said this in chapter 31, because he knew it was over. It was over with from King Josiah days, when he was told that, we would get the curses, when he sent that priestess to the temple. All right, Jeremiah said this in Jeremiah 31:31. All right. And behold, the days come, said the Elohim, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, said the Elohim. I will put my law in their inward parts, and will write it in their hearts, and will be their Yah, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, know the Elohim, for they shall know me from the least of them unto the greatest of them, said the Elohim, for I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. So if you ain't showing that we the Hebrews, that broke covenant and that the Amorites, the Jews got our heritage, then your history off. And you teaching the history that they put out for us to be misguided by, to be misled by. That's why come your history don't add up. And especially you New Testament people. Y'all don't know what's going on with that New Testament. I got some videos showing how the exiles didn't make it over into New Testament times and how that Jesus fella was an Amorite, Edomite from John Heineke's converting the Edomites. You know, the Maccabees, all them Amorite scribes, you know. Those gonna be the people that we abandon our heritage to in the book of Jeremiah. The people that was placed in Samaria in 2 Kings chapter 17. In 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24, them Sepharvims. And you can see that they was learning our tradition, but they was learning the tradition that Jeroboam had set up. You see, and then when King Josiah was born, he cleaned the land up, and those Hamite Egyptians come killed him after he cleaned the Egyptian religion up. And then we went into Africa because the Egyptians put a weak son on the throne. And then we went back to Egyptian worship. And then we went into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. And how you know we never come out to be reunited with the exiles? You have the prophet Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. They show that the Queen of Heaven worshipers didn't come out of Africa to be reunited with them. You know, our faith was sealed. That's why we in captivity. And if you ain't kicking this formula and you ain't showing this history the way that I'm showing it, then your history off. And you using Jewish history. I don't care what you say and how you feel. You know, a lot of y'all gonna feel funny because you've been searching and been doing this a long time and you think that you know. But if you don't know about them Amorites, then your history finna be destroyed. You see what I'm saying? It's finna be destroyed because we only got Tanakh history. And when we ran into Africa in the book of Jeremiah, we didn't take no scribes in to record covenant history. We didn't take no scribes in to record covenant history. We didn't do that. We didn't take no scribes into Africa to write about a covenant that we should have been doing on the promised land. So, you know, you Hebrews need to wake up and stop using Jewish history and trust the Tanakh, even though they done translated it a whole bunch of times, which show the power of those Babylonian scribes. They didn't even let other people translate our history. You see what I'm saying? Because it don't do nothing. The more confusion that's created, the better off it is for them, because then people can't realize that they are not Hebrews and can't trace their origin. That's why come the prophet Abraham was told in Genesis 15:16 that the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Well, that was spoken of for this day. And the reason that it's not